no regret, no guilt or shame this time. No, not this time. Once I surrender, I won't dare look back, 'cause if I do, I'll get off track. Move ahead in faith and patiently await your answer. What will it be? Sight beyond what I see. You know what's best for me. Prepare my mind, prepare my heart for whatever comes. I'm gonna be ready, strength to pass any test. I feel like I'm so blessed with you in control. I can't go wrong, 'cause I always know I'm gonna be ready. I was free to do what I wanna do. Lost everything, but I still had you. You showed me your grace. Now my life's renewed, and I thank you. Yes, I thank you. So I'll tell anyone who will listen. I'll testify about how good you were to me when so-called friends passed me by. The fact that you would show somebody sober down so much mercy beyond what I see. I know you know what's best for me. Prepare my mind and prepare my heart for whatever comes. I wanna be ready. Gave me the strength to pass any test. I know that I'm so blessed with you in control, oh Lord. I can't go wrong. So use me as you will, I'll pay the price, 'cause you made the ultimate sacrifice. It's all because of you that I even have a life, and I'll give my life as a tribute of how great you are. Sight beyond what I see. I know you know what's best for me. Prepare my mind and prepare my heart for whatever comes. I wanna be ready. Yeah, 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 yeah. I wanna pass this test. I know that I am, know that I am, know that I'm so blessed with you in control, oh Lord. I can't go wrong. I know I wanna be, I'm gonna be ready. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This time I'm gonna be ready. 'Cause you live deep inside of me. And it's in your will for me to be ready.
Thank you very much, Okola, for your beautiful ministry in music. Tonight I'm happy to be able to collaborate as Family Ministries Director. I'm happy to be able to collaborate with the Office of the Presidency as we focus on effective family life in the local church. I would like to join with our Family Life Director from Peters Hall, Mark Roberts, in welcoming and acknowledging the presence of all those who are following us online and those who are here in the face-to-face audience. I'm happy for our Ministerial Director who is here with us and all others that are here. Many years ago, I was deeply moved by a particular line in a song made popular by Teddy Pendergrass. It's so good loving somebody when somebody loves you back. I don't know anybody would have a problem with that line. Sister Jem, it's good loving somebody when somebody loves you back. The Family Ministries Department is about helping persons to develop great and loving relationships. Husbands and wives loving each other, parents and children loving each other, brothers and sisters loving each other, and even in the family of God, it's about love. And our president is a lover boy. I remember before he got married, we had the privilege of sharing about 7 weeks in a particular home, and he was preparing for marriage, and he would take his girlfriend picture at the time, and he would hug it, and said he was feeling the urge to merge. Well, he has had many years of dealing with that feelings now, and tonight I want to invite him as he introduces our special guests and facilitators for this program that has been designed to reach our family life leaders and elders and pastors, so that as we prepare for 2022, we can move further into making family life more effective at the local church. President Clark, Pastor Exxon Clark, could you please come forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor James, and good night to everyone, particularly those who are gathered here and our leaders who are following online. Tonight it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you our special guest in the persons of Drs. Trevor and Edith Fraser, who hail from Huntsville, Alabama, United States of America. Drs. Fraser have been married for the past 52 years, and God has blessed their union with 2 successful adult children, Keisha, a practicing medical doctor in Georgia, and Trevor Jr., a dentist in North Carolina. They are also the proud grandparents of 4 and have been enjoying the rich blessings of nurturing, of being part of the nurturing process of these wonderful gems. Drs. Fraser come to us with an illustrious track record of service and have been long-standing professors, family life facilitators, counselors, and presenters for more than 45 years. God has given them the joy of traveling throughout the United States of America, Bermuda, Canada, and various parts of Africa, where they have been able to make eternal deposits into many lives. Dr. Edith and Trevor Fraser are both retired but continue to give of their resources to build up the church. Dr. Edith is a is an internationally acclaimed sociologist, holding a PhD from Smith School of Social Work, Northampton, Alabama, and is also a licensed therapist who has been selected as Alumnus of the Year for Boston University School of Social Work. She's also a Fulbright and Charles Drew Scholar, and was recently elected to the Alabama Hall of Fame for Social Workers and the Day Garrett Award from Smith School of Social Work. Dr. Trevor is a pastoral counselor and family life educator who has his foundation in pastoral ministry, having worked in the Greater New York Conference, South Atlantic Conference in Georgia, and Southeastern Conference in Florida. During his ministry, he was responsible for leading over 1,200 individuals to Christ, and was also instrumental in planting a new church. He holds a Master's of Divinity degree from Andrews University and a Doctor of Ministry degree from Emory University in Georgia. He is former professor and coordinator for the Masters of Arts in Pastoral Studies and associate professor in the School of Theology at Oakwood University. This couple not only believe in service, but they have modeled it throughout their lives. They are simple servants who have been significantly successful in ministry. One of their signature achievements would have been the book they have authored entitled Saving Marriages by Applying Biblical Wisdom. And presently, they're working on a few other publications. The Frasers are committed to marital success in African American, African Caribbean, and the wider multicultural community. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are truly happy for their ministry, and we pray that as they share with us tonight, from the reservoir of their knowledge and experience, we will all be enriched and empowered for even greater service. And so tonight, I join with Pastor James, our Family Life Director, to officially welcome Dr. Trevor and Edith Fraser to this very special moment as they share with our family directors on effective family life in the local church. God bless you, Dr. and Sister and Drs. Fraser, as you minister to us tonight.
Evening, everyone. And we want to just say how blessed we have been. And we want to thank Pastor James and Pastor Clark for this introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to share around this conference here in Central Church, as well as around the conference through streaming. Oh, how technology has changed our lives as we look out and try to make this ministry even wider. And it is so important that the family survives, because if the family fails, the church fails. And so we want to say how important it is for us to be here and to spend time with you all. Now, I'm hoping and I'm trusting that what we show on the screen will work as well, but we were thinking about this night as a time when we would communicate with the family life leaders and hopefully get some feedback from them. And so I am hoping that we will be able to get feedback, because we are we are forging in a new area and not knowing totally all of the things that you need in your territory. So that is how we are going to approach this tonight, as a workshop that engages and finds out and determines what is and who are the critical and what are the critical needs for this Field of Guyana Conference. So before we begin, it is our role and our function to always pray and ask God's intervention in this process. From the altar of thine heart, take now some flaming coals. Then touch our lives and give us, Lord, hearts that burn for souls. Let the words of our mouth, the meditation of our hearts, be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer.
So because we had sort of envisioned something interactive, that first slide, which we're ready for you to go to, talks a little bit about sharing some of your own family life plans. So I'd kind of like to know what you guys are doing now so that we can expand on what you're doing, and we'll also tell you, what we think can work. So we're going to ask at least you, Pastor James, to tell us a little bit about what family life looks like here in Guyana. What are some of the kind of programs and activities?
Microphone. Yes, Doctors Fraser. Family Life in Guyana Conference pre-COVID and COVID time. Just before the arrival of COVID, Family Life in Guyana Conference, we emphasize marriage couples clubs.
Right.
Where they have some churches would meet maybe once a month, and older couples and younger couples would meet for an ongoing regular program to help strengthen and support marriages. We use technology. We have couples devotional messages that we send out from the department every day, encouraging couples to, just like how you eat your physical food every day to ensure you maintain health and wellness. We encourage, from time to time, we would give little tasks and encourage couples that work on sitting with your husband or sitting with your wife and read this together and then pray for one another and so on. And it has been doing well because the groups have been increasing. People request for it more, and the feedback is a positive one. Then we have seminars. In Guyana Conference, we follow the calendar as it relates to family life ministry. So we do fully participate in Christian Home and Marriage Week in February, and we participate in Family Togetherness Week in September. And outside of those periods, we have different churches would have seminars where sometimes the family ministry leader is invited, or there are other persons who are experts in family life, persons like Will Campbell, persons like Latoya, Tucker, and there are others around the conference. They would do seminars for different churches, and myself as family life director, sometimes we deal with the family and gadgets. Sometimes we deal with solving conflicts in marriage. I have done a family evangelism series with one church, teaching members how you can evangelize within your family, your immediate family and extended family members. When you visit relatives, what you can do to develop wholesome relationships with members. And there might be some other things, but generally speaking, each local church would have a family ministries leader. They're encouraged to work along with the family ministries committee and and do based on what is required of the family ministries department. We encourage doing an assessment to know what the needs are like and look at the resources that are available, the human resource that you have that are experts in that area, and try to minister to the needs of the members. And we encourage family members. We know family is not perfect, but we encourage family members to try to use the very medicine that we are sharing with others, so that as you drink the medicine and you taste of the effectiveness of it, you are able to share that with others. Outside of that, the family ministries department of itself at the conference, we do a lot of counseling. For the year, I have counseled 25 couples, premarital preparation, and I would have 25 weddings for the year as well. I've finished 22 already. That's just the family ministries director, but there are other pastors or so. We have a lot of weddings going on, both young people and older people, and we also do counseling in terms of post-marital counseling to the level that we are capable of handling. If it's outside our league, we send them to others to assist. So that's a general picture about what happens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we're looking at family life as expansive now.
So here's some things that we will count. You can go to that next slide. What we think should be components of family life. And it looks like a lot of them you guys are already doing. You have couples ministry to support marriages, and you also work on issues for couples. Then you have family ministry.
You have parenting. You have children issues. We talked about worship that is critical. And we think in this pandemic time and period that one that needs to be augmented within the family is grief ministry, men's ministry, and women's ministry.
So we're going to look at sort of each of these. Couples ministry, it sounds like you guys have that down pat. People can have monthly meeting and quarterly meetings, and the only thing we highly recommend, and we mentioned it earlier, is couples retreats. Our church has a couples retreat. We've had them for over 30 years. Sometimes we go to campgrounds, we go to the beach, we go somewhere for the weekend.
Or on cruise.
We have done a cruise. In fact, we were going to do a cruise last year, and COVID voted against it. And so that's another activity. We really do believe the church should support couples.
And there are special occasions sometimes that we would like to encourage. Like, for example, to augment those times when you have Valentine's Day, when you have periods like that, where couples and the couples within the church can set up those times, and then we are emphasizing date nights for couples.
So if we say that date nights are important, we think it's great if the couples ministry can organize some. And our couples have gone together places, and that's been a part of couples ministry. Whatever we can do that can help enrich or support couples. But we also know, next slide, that couples have issues. And we're listing 4 issues that we find that many couples have: abuse, adultery, communication, and finances.
Now, you know, it's important as we think about this that in times of crisis, couples enter and are engaged with more conflicts and more issues. So there are people that will sometimes not realize how much stressors or pressure. is on the family. And so this is not to really really just blame the family. This is to really help the family in times of crisis. How do we engage and how do we undergird and how do we support so that we can save the family? Because that's what we're talking about. How do we save the family? And so we know that during times of crisis, that, and sometimes, crisis like the COVID-19 imposition on our society will bring increasing domestic violence.
And so that's just one area we want to look at today. If we could have that next slide and the next slide. And here's kind of what we're going to talk about under the umbrella of domestic violence. We're going to do a quiz, and we're going to just ask the people to kind of raise their hands. We won't be able to see you in Zoom land, but you can raise your hand or give an answer, and we're going to see what you know about this and talk about what abuse is, and then we're going to talk about prevention. So are you ready for the quiz?
Teachers have to have quizzes now.
Okay, first question. Next slide, so that everyone can see. Domestic violence is what it should say, is very rare in Guyana. True or false? I want y'all to think about it. True or false? Okay, what do you all think? False. Okay. Which statement, second question, is accurate about the rate of domestic violence in Guyana? 1 in 2 women, 1 in 3 women, 1 in 5 women, or women in relationships are not usually victims. Men are the victims. Which of these is right? 1 in 2, 1 in 3, 1 in 5. 1 in 3 said someone. 1 in 4. So you said I didn't have 5, so that's right. Somebody else. 3. Okay? Now save your answer because we're going to give all the answers at the end, but you guys got the first one right. When one considers homicide, is there a correlation between homicide and domestic violence? Yes or no? Yes or no? All right. For every instance of homicide in the Caribbean, and this expands beyond Guyana, domestic violence is involved in 5 out of 5 A, 1 out of 5 B, good, 2 out of 5 C, 3 out of 5 D. Good. Next, we just have 2 more questions, or maybe 3. Almost none of the Caribbean countries have policies which address IPV as intimate partner violence. So I'll repeat this. Almost none of the Caribbean countries have policies which address IPV or domestic violence. True or false? True or false? Okay?
Somebody says false.
All right, we're gonna get the answers. Individuals who are religious are less likely to be victims of domestic violence. True or false? You guys are ready for this quiz. Domestic violence is caused by unemployment and stress, men feeling a loss of power and control, breakdown of family values, and substance abuse, all of the above. All right, let's see if you all are right. Guyana has among the highest domestic violence rates in the world. I'm sorry to tell you that. In the world. 1 in 2, 51%. 51%. For every instance of homicide in the Caribbean, domestic violence is involved in 2 out of 5. So there's a correlation. Almost all the Caribbean countries, you have policies. It's not that we don't have policies. It's that there's a lack of follow-through on the policy. Religion, while a source of solace for the victims, often excuses domestic violence. People are saying, this is God's will, do what God, God is going to bring you through. We all have troubles and difficulties, And just know that God is with you. Um, there's no temptation that is common to. So we give all of these sort of reasons why it's okay. And as you said, there are many, this is my daughter's favorite word. There are multifactorial causations for whatever she's talking about, and that's also true for domestic violence. Are there any questions about this quiz? And I know that we have these two audiences, and if you maybe put something in the chat and someone can tell us about it, that's fine too. But we want you to know that family life really should be in conjunction with women's ministry addressing this issue. There's an End It Now Day in August, and family life needs to be aware of that and deal with that. And here's just a definition of domestic violence.
And sometimes I think people don't know what that means, and so we have to crystallize it and narrow it down. Domestic violence is considered to be a part of a pattern of coercive behavior exhibited by one individual with the aim being to establish and maintain power and control over another. Persons with whom he or she has had an intimate relationship. So what we are seeing here is something that power controlling is what's a vital understanding of how we look at this idea of domestic violence.
So we have a couple of questions. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Do you know someone who is a victim of domestic violence? Have you seen people who have been in our churches? Did you know domestic violence / intimate partner violence happens with adolescents, high school students?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, how is family life addressing it? And again, do you have anything to say about that?
So you're seeing that come on up.
Come on. Yes, absolutely.
It is something that we face in times of crisis, but it is sometimes things that we will face just as a causation of something that happens to us. Yes.
We do have some collaboration going on between the Family Ministries Department and the Women's Ministries Department. In Guyana, we are not dead when it comes to domestic violence. I'm going to invite the Family Ministries leader from the Olivet Seventh-day Adventist Church who is here. They recently had something of this sort. I remember the day at Sophia I was invited at Sophia on the day for End It Now, and did a presentation on why men abuse women. The focus was not on the victim, but the focus was on the perpetrator. And we were emphasizing that there's a special book that the author spent a lot of time studying the reason why men are being violent, and I started to focus on that direction.
And again, we have a chapter in our book, the last chapter, where we talk about domestic violence.
Yes.
So come right up.
Yes, come Sister Candy. She will share more to give.
Yeah. But what we're saying, as she's coming up,
Come on up.
What we're saying is every church should really think about how we can help our members address this issue. Come right up.
Good evening, everyone. So just to share my experience from the Olivet Seventh-day Adventist Church, we have recognized that this is a pertinent issue that's plaguing our church that needs to be addressed. So what we would have done is collaborated with persons not only on the local level, but we've had international experts, and we've had programs even addressing violence against men, because that is one that is usually not dealt with.
You're absolutely right.
And we've had interventions at various levels, including our youth, but more so what we have for our family ministry. We find that many persons are not open, or comfortable about talking about it. So we're trying to create that space that atmosphere. So we have these ongoing discussions. We have group and we have virtual sessions given COVID. We deal with different issues, not pointing to specific persons, but outside of, as specialists, we're persons where we can really discuss practical issues that families face.
Very good.
And I want to say how much important that is. If we don't talk about it, then people would think they're the only ones and they're alone.
Yes.
And we need to know that this is a problem and that we, the church, needs to acknowledge that it happens even to people who go to church every Sabbath. We did a family life seminar many years ago, and the woman who came to talk to me was like Nicodemus going to Jesus in the night. She sneaked to talk to me, and it turned out that she was the head deacon's wife. The head deacon's wife. And the day before, he had thrown her down the steps. So it does happen in our churches, and we need to acknowledge it, and we need to deal with it. And it has an impact.
Yes. An issue about the men being abused is one of those silent things. Because we assume that men are not going to speak about it. And it may happen in ways that they have aggravated each other within the relationship.
So the reason we should address this topic, next slide, is because it impacts the children. Besides the fact that it impacts the mothers or the fathers, it impacts the children. And they have found that witnessing violence between one's parents is the strongest risk factor for transmitting violent behavior to the next generation. If we're going to stop it, we have to do it before the children see it. And boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to abuse their own partners. Twice as likely. And 30 to 60% of perpetrators of intimate violence, not only do they abuse their partners, they abuse the children.
So we're talking about trying to stem the tide that really impacts the family. How do we impact and help our families to survive better? We need to give them help.
So the next slide talks about the types of intimate partner violence or domestic violence. And we actually have slides on each one of those. And I would only say we're not going to do an elaborate discussion of that, but we want you to know that there are these 4 different types. And Trevor, I hesitate to bring this up because we have physical, emotional, sexual, financial, but there are people who believe that you can't have sexual abuse in marriages. And I wondered if you'd be willing to take on that really risky topic tonight. In fact, there's a pastor in New York City who got into a lot of trouble for that.
And that was the church I pastored previously. And it really went viral. It is something that is really dangerous, or in a sense, really, we may overlook certain things, but our spouse is not a person that does not have their own mind and their own prerogatives. They are individuals not to be abused, not to be misused, but we are partners. So we have a responsibility, and we have to know that we do not, as men, have a prerogative over our spouses. We are partners that assist and love and care for, and we are always going to be listening to our partners, our wives, when the word is no, when we say it, it is meant, when they say it, it is meant, and we should be careful that we do not abuse that privilege. That is not a privilege that we have, matter of fact. This is a relationship that we attempt to foster that gives each other prerogatives, and it is always important to be willing to hear and listen to each other.
So we're going to just very quickly, we're not going to stay on any of these slides, so we're just going to ask you to go through physical, then there's emotional, and it talks about different kinds of emotional, and then it talks about sexual abuse, and we list those. And then we end up on why people, the next slide, what we know about batterers. And you talked about, Pastor James, how you had done a workshop on why men batter. And so this just supports, I'm pretty sure, what you talked about, which is batterers tend to be controlling,
manipulative, sometimes because they're frustrated, often see themselves as victims, believe that men are ordained to be in charge of the relationship. My question is always, what do you think you're in charge of? Okay, what are you in charge of? We are partners in a relationship, and when God has selected men to be the priests, it does not mean that they are the dictators. They are the priests to care for, to lead their family, but not to dictate over. It is, and I think that's a situation that we sometimes see ourselves when God gives us, and it is interesting to me when I think about it theologically. God is saying, as Christ is head of the church and makes the husband the head of the family, he's talking about this role of priest, making sure that we communicate the word of God down to our families and to include our wives in that process. That's what we're talking about. But not dictators, but priests of the family to provide for and care for our family. That's what we do.
So the next slide talks about the 3 strongest risk predictors of violence against women. One is a childhood experience of violence. Next slide. Oh,
Controlling the behavior of us husbands or partners, and the use of alcohol or drugs within the marriage that impacts significantly.
So we just want to talk just briefly about some cultural components. We're not going to go through all of them. I want to talk about the second one, though. In research that I looked at, 1 in 3 Caribbean adults, more so than those in Latin America or the United States, had no issue with wife beating if a woman is unfaithful. We explored that a little bit this morning. I just want to say that there's no biblical basis for that. That is why I point you to Hosea and Gomer. God did not tell Hosea, go get her and beat her. I'm just straight Bible.
What he said was, go get her
and love her.
And love her. And matter of fact, said that there's some point in time when you all will separate within the house.
And I'm not saying what God asked us to do is easy. I'm not saying what God asked us to do is easy. We talked this week about servant leadership. And servant leadership goes on in the home.
Police do not believe women or try to help them when they hear about abuse. This is something that goes on in the States as well.
So the police are called, women call them, and then the police don't do anything.
And so there's not a lot of help sometimes from the legal system. And so we want to encourage our male and our husbands to be God's men directing their families.
And the last two, I think all of us could be involved in. It says women are encouraged by their family, but sometimes even by their church to change their story, to don't say that, he's a really nice person. I worked for a couple of years with a woman who did research just among Seventh-day Adventists. And she had pastors who told the women, but he's very active in church, he pays tithe, he's a very nice man. Why don't you just try to be sweeter or kinder or this or that, and then this wouldn't happen? There's, again, no biblical basis for that, and I don't think churches should encourage that. So what can we do about intervention? The next slide. Domestic violence is not just a woman's problem. It's not a woman's problem, it's a family problem.
So recognize that and acknowledge it is a serious problem for the church and for the family to deal with. And address the problem holistically.
So there should be, shelters for women. Sometimes women cannot stay in the home.
And so pastors, here again is a referral. Pastors need to know that that's available. Appoint someone who can take care of and assist the women to find those, because domestic violence shelters are usually places where men should not really know about it.
And the final thing I want to say for a moment, you probably see a lot of passion from me on this topic. For many years, I ran a group for men who we call in the United States perpetrators. I started the program in Huntsville in 1990 and was responsible for running it for 5 years. And we provided treatment for men to help them learn other ways of expressing their anger and to give them permission not to have to be in control. And so if there are no treatment programs for men, maybe that's an area you all might want to think about looking at. Think about what that would do. Think about what that would do if we had treatment programs for the men.
So intervention empowers women as decision makers.
So let's look at that next slide because it talks about that. Right. And be empathic, non-judgmental. Well, why is she staying there? Non-judgmental and patient.
Because often she does not have a place to go. And that's where the pastor needs to be able to understand she doesn't have a place to go.
So the next slide talks some more about strategies for safety. And again, I'm not going to look at all of them, but
and we have 2 slides back to back.
Yeah, there should be a safe place. We've talked about that. People who are victims of domestic violence, if they have told you in your church, then you need to have a list of people who they can call, who are safe places for them to go.
And we talk about confidentiality. That's where the pastor is a significant person in making sure that the church knows that whatever you say to the pastor, it's going to be confidential. It's not going to go to the board. It's not going to go outside of. We even practice a policy in our house that when it is something sensitive that it's conveyed to this counselor, we don't say anything. She doesn't tell me. The same thing is true from my side. I will not utter it. Confidentiality, even though we are intimate partners, but we cannot.
So just make sure you help the women develop strategies for safety. Next slide. As some would put it, the Caribbean doesn't have a crime problem, it has a violence problem. And so that is what we want you to recognize. If your church is not doing something about domestic violence, you should be. That should be something that you include in your family life repertoire. So let's talk about something else with family life.
We're talking about workshops on parenting.
So for the whole family, there could be workshops on parenting. You could have a parenting club. Okay, after this next slide, we could have a parenting club, a children's day. You're already doing the worship tips. Encourage family nights and encourage a family retreat. At this time, we're going to have special music.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? I want to introduce to you, here in this corner, for the good and the right, stands a champion robed in white. His height exceeds the heavens, his weight outweighs the world. His reach reaches everywhere, his age is evermore. He is higher than the highest, he's greater than the great. No one could ever take his crown away. He's more mighty than the mightiest, he reigns from above. He is the all-time undisputed, undefeated champion of love. He left his hometown to enter this arena, to raise his hands in victory for me. Oh, the angry crowd cried, "Crucify," to the king who wore their crown, as they gladly watched the champion go down. Oh, but I will never count him out, for I'm a witness of, oh, the day he rose to reclaim the title, champion of love. He is higher than the highest, he's greater than the great. No one could ever take his crown away. He's more mighty than the mightiest, he reigns from above. He is higher than the highest, he's greater than the great. No one could ever take his crown away. He's more mighty than the mightiest, he reigns from above. He's the all-time undisputed, undefeated champion. The all-time undisputed, undefeated champion. The all-time undisputed, undefeated champion of love, of love.
slide changed. The next one.
So
We want to thank you for that
Absolutely.
beautiful,
Beautiful.
I mean, the undisputed champion that can help us through the crisis we've been going through.
So the other ministry we want to introduce to Family Life Ministries that I'm very committed to is grief ministry. You know, it's true that COVID has accentuated it, but grief ministry in our church started before COVID. But at the present time, my colleague, Dr. Donna Scott, and I are presenting workshops to churches and conferences because we believe that every church should have a grief ministry leader. And so we want to develop grief ministry, have a grief ministry leader, and help people decide on the scope of that.
You know, we have about 3 areas of grief ministry that we have been engaged in. We have a Friday night once a month where people can call in, and it's not, you don't have to say a word on that. People from all over, we've set it up, and they can call in because sometimes people want anonymity. They want to be, they just want to help. And that's one thing that we have done. We had a young man that lost his father, and he generated the whole process and created this call-in program. We spend probably about 25 to 30 minutes on the second Friday night every month talking to grief issues, whether it's how do we celebrate, how do we deal with losses during the holiday, how do we deal with traumatic losses that come, for example, from an accident or something like. So we always have a different schedule or different topic that we will deal with, and we provide that for anyone around the country that wants to participate in that, and they don't have to speak, but some will do, and they will get involved in the process. But we provide it so that they can remain anonymous. We have the other is the church. Our church does it, and Edith conducts this with our individual church, and once a month that it's offered where
A grief
support group where they can come and be engaged in this process. They can come, and it's usually Zoom right now, because they want to be in this environment, and they're supported and they're helped, and that provides another option. And then, of course, the conference, one that they have began to promote around various conferences and have it at least once a year. They're in the organizational process of really doing it in ways that people can access this grief ministry.
So what do we mean when we say decide what scope you want? Well, grief ministry could be as simple as making sure anytime someone in your church suffers a loss, either in their family or someone they're very close to, you can send them cards, make a visit, pray with them. You know, you could, and maybe you guys do this just naturally, give them food, etc. But it might involve providing quarterly tips on how to manage your grief. You might, just as you're sending out devotional thoughts, you could send out material on managing your grief. You can have a grief seminar. And you can also, as we've already said, have a grief support group. The other thing that we've done is you even could have some grief information that you share with people who are members of the church so that they won't be Jovian friends. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Oh, you want to speak to that? Come right
Please
up.
come up.
Sorry. Yeah, you should have just come on up. You should have even asked. Yeah. So grief ministry and having a grief support group are just other aspects that you could do.
we are making progress in this area of grief ministry. Um, personally, my mother died a few years ago. I have a brother who died in a disaster. So by my own heart, I relate to certain things. But we have, I usually access resource from the Trans-European Division, videos and so dealing with wellness. And we would share with families, sometimes call them. I will call a husband who lost a wife and ask them how you're doing and so. And they would tell me how they're doing and we pray and so, and I send them videos as fast as people, that important videos like dealing with, like for instance, an example is as the secretary of the Trans-European Division at the time, who is a woman, she lost her husband, and prior to losing her husband, they both lost their home by fire and their business. And she shared in a 34 minutes video how you deal with significant loss in your life. In the European Division, they put up videos. They have what you call wellness webinar videos that they do consistently, and I would follow and share around. We also have, like, I had two of my colleagues, Pastor Marvin Smith and Pastor Jamal Sanko. There is a member who lost a child, the last child in the family, young, a teenager. And we visited the entire family for like within a 3 months period after the death. And we sit with them. We had each member answer questions like we asked, how prepared were you for the death of your brother? And we give them a chance to talk, and then we talk about the stages of grief and which area you think right now you might be experiencing, and talk about accepting the reality, realizing that this person will not come back.
Right.
And at some point in time, you have to be able to continue. You cannot remain stuck, but you have to be able to continue life. So I like what you're sharing with us. We even had Dr. Curtis Fox did a presentation for us and encouraged us to set up the same kind of thing at the church level. So
Very good.
this is timely, and the deposits that you are making, I am sure you didn't come here by chance, and it will bear dividends as we continue.
You know, Edith has done an elaborate kind of looking at in the individual church, because sometimes we, especially when you have so many losses in a short period of time, people get missed in the church. And it provides an excellent way of entrance of evangelism for the church to see and greet and meet people that we would never cover. And so when that happens, there is a food committee that gets out. There is sometimes where the person needs to go and travel distances to see their family, and the church or some group in the church usually is helpful to facilitate that process. All of these things in grief is really, sometimes we haven't looked at it all the time pastorally in that concern. Over that concern, I think it's important for us to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so to support what Trevor said, I'm going to talk about two things, and then we'll see if there are any questions as we sort of think about wrap this all up. Number one, I did say I have a grief support group. We do it on Zoom. When we know of someone who has had a loss, we notify them of the grief support group. They come to the grief support group via Zoom, and we have a small educational piece, and then people just talk about how they are, what they're experiencing. So in November, the topic was managing your grief through the holidays. The last time they met last night, and last night's topic was, can we go on, and how do we go on? probably in January, we'll talk about it's a new year. How do you deal with the loss in this new year? So we have a different topic in the grief support group, and we usually have anywhere from 8 to 10 people attending. The other thing that Trevor alluded to, and I just want to spend a moment talking about that, is grief personal ministry outreach, which I think if you have a grief ministry leader and a grief ministry team, you might think about. You can send sympathy cards and pray for individuals in the community. Now, I'm not sure how you all manage it here. In the United States, they have obituaries of people who have died in the newspaper. You could connect with a funeral home and then, get names from that way and send them cards, visit with them, pray with them, invite them to your grief seminar. Let them know, if you have a support group, let them know what you have available so that the community knows we are concerned about them at this difficult time. When people are grieving, they feel very isolated, they feel very much alone. And wouldn't it be great if the church says, we're here to help you and to be supportive of you? And so these are just some ways that you could really reach out. You could, under that, even develop a funeral director's packet with a card in it, a grief book, an invitation to a seminar, and you could leave it at the funeral home and they could give it out to people who are their clients. We're talking about making grief ministry not only something that helps the members of your church, but a part of personal ministry. So these are just some of the aspects of family life that you may or may not have yet, but we would definitely encourage you to expand and grow in. Are there any questions about what we've talked about? We were hoping this could be sort of a collaborative discussion. So are there things you're doing that you'd like to ask questions about? Are there things you haven't done? We know for Zoom you can put it in the chat because we do Zoom a lot. If you have questions or things you'd like for us to talk about. Yes, come
We
right
have
up.
another question. And while he's coming up, there was a concern about, or we wanted to talk about, and we mentioned about a short devotional book. And it's called 5 Minutes Couples Devotion with 150 devotional topics that, though it says 5 minutes, when you are engaged with each other.
It might take a little longer.
All right, go on.
Yes, good night. Just a little bit of observation. Many of the policies, the domestic violence policies that we have around the Caribbean, Guyana here, based on what I've read, much of it doesn't really deal with the perpetrator. And in my thinking, I'm saying if you want to deal with the problem, then you deal with
You're absolutely right.
the issue.
Speak it out, so say it
So,
again.
He said that policies don't deal with the perpetrator.
right,
Yes.
so not much is being done to help men, and a lot of men are hurt, and a lot of men, and that's why, ignorance step in and they lash out in
Right.
terms of violence and so on. So based on your experience and in your ministry, what would you suggest for family life leaders and elders and so on to do in terms?
One thing comes up right quick. Establish strong men's ministry that discuss the issue in men's ministry.
And then, to be honest, when I ran the group, or when I led the group for perpetrators, which is what we call them, it was mandated. They've done the research. There are some men who will go into treatment, but most men think there's nothing wrong with them, and it's okay to beat their spouse. And so I personally went to the judges and got the judges to mandate that the men who came before them, and that's the problem, doesn't sound like the men are going before the judges, required that they go to this treatment. We had 12 sessions, and in the 12 sessions, we taught them about anger management. We taught them about turning their hot thoughts into cool thoughts. We talked to them about taking 5 minutes and walking around the block, or 10 minutes, or 100 minutes, whatever you need. So we taught them skills, and that was the problem. They didn't have skills. And so my suggestion would be the men's ministry should definitely address it, but we have to teach people skills. If things aren't going right in your life, it's not okay to come home and kick the dog and your wife. It's not okay.
So we really feel that this is a ministry of family life that can be expansive, can be evangelistical, that can help the church to move forward. And so we hope that any opportunity that we can be of service to help you get and talk about it, we will certainly want to be able to be available to you. We want to thank you for the time that you have given as family life leaders to this process, and we trust that God will continue to assist you as you grow and expand as a church and as a conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you very Doctors Edith and Trevor Fraser. You have been blessing us in the daytime, and you have blessed us tonight. We didn't come like Nicodemus, but we are here for the night blessing. Family ministries leaders, as I speak, those who are following us in Essequibo, those who are following us in Berbice, and those in Demerara, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us in this special initiative. I am sure as I sat here, there were many deposits that were made in my heart. And as family ministries leader, marriages, weddings and funeral services, and so matters relating to those two important ministries provide many wonderful opportunities to help people to place their faith and confidence in God. To help people to connect with God. I see it regularly as we engage in these things. And I believe the family ministry can do a great work ministering to persons who are experiencing grief. There are books in our ABC that we sometimes can share with spouses. There is a book written by a wife who lost her husband, and she shared her experience, what happened with her after her husband's death. Her husband died in his 40s. She shared things like not knowing how to really deal with it, how some women in the church became suspicious of her when she was talking to their husbands, and so on, how her life really changed. And she shared in this book how she was able to eventually overcome and get back some balance in her life. And I think we can learn from that. The book even also shared the fact that relatives took turn in helping to give support to the family after the death of the husband. Persons came, spent a month, and next family would come, and so that they could have gotten some support, because it can be difficult when you have a sudden loss of a loved one. So we are really thankful for the ministry of the Frasers and leaders. By God's grace, we can embrace what have been shared with us, and we can take this momentum into 2022, the department is planning to establish a conference family ministries committee, and that very committee could be part of the movement going to the different counties to ensure that we share with you as leaders, and you can share what you receive with the members and so on, so that we can spread the ministry, because I am sure there are many resources that are available. Even the General Conference annual resource book is available, but the challenge is we need more people to get involved to reach a wider cross-section of people, because I cannot do it alone, the pastor cannot do it alone, you cannot do it alone, but we need to empower more leaders, more families to minister to these various needs that are available, that are existing there. And so we want to thank the Frasers. I want to thank our president, who collaborated with us to ensure that this initiative became a reality, with the Frasers being present here. And I want to thank those who participated tonight, Brother Roberts and Pastor Swerving and Brother Cyrus and Sister Bino and others who sang, and even Sister Candace, thank you so much for being present here with us. Sister Jem and the technical team. I know we started with a little glitch, but things work out well, and to God be the glory. I am going to ask Dr. Fraser to do a closing prayer, a special prayer for all the family ministries leaders across the conference, and for our families, for the families of the family ministries leaders, as we bring our program to a close. Thank you again, everyone following us on Zoom and YouTube and Facebook.
Father, we thank you so much for your people and for the need to serve. And now the God of peace that brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of the flock, through the everlasting covenant make you perfect in every good gift, working in you that which is well-pleasing in his sight, to whom be glory in the church, that all of God's people say, amen and amen.
Thank you. Good night. Enjoy your rest. God bless you.